Okay, vowels. The primary vocal chart defines four reference points in purely articulatory terms that represent the extreme limits of possible vocal qualities. These limits depend on the position of the tongue, where in the mouth the tongue makes a kind of constriction and what the height of the tongue is. Then we can define four extremes now. First of all, there are vowels that evolve the highest possible position of the tongue in the mouth and the most forward quality. E is now the highest type of E that I can produce, and this is where the narrowing occurs. Now, the second vowel is the point of reference. The opposite is the vowel that evolves the lowest possible tongue position, that is, you have to open your mouth, and the worst quality the vowel will be like this. So now my tongue is back and low in the mouth. Now we will need to point more. The next is the reference point where the tongue is very low and has a lot of front quality. The most front quality and the result will be like that. And finally, we need a vowel produced with a back quality where the tongue is very high in the mouth. The result is something that, like, if we combine these extreme points, we get a quadrilateral. And now in this quadrilateral, if we take it out from the mouth, we have 4 points of reference here. They are air, or, and in modified shapes with clear geometric proportions. These quadrilaterals can now serve as a reference model for the subsequent definition of vowel articulation, creates a kind of narrowing at the front of the mouth, and is contrast with back vowels where the narrowing occurs at the back of the mouth. The second parameter is the parameter of high versus low vowels produced with a high tongue position and vowels produced with a low tongue position, so that for main vowel chart reference points are obtained. E, which is a high front vowel, which is a low front vowel, or which is a low back vowel, and which is the height back of the vowel between these four main reference points. Okay, so we can now enter two equally spaced auditory steps into horizontal lines and can determine the next vowel. So our horizontal line as a guideline, and the next vowel is another front vowel, which will now be mid high E. The second one is air, and here we have the back vowel, or on another one, all with the third parameter. Okay, if we invert the label around the parameters, we get a secondary set here. Now the secondary main vowels have received numbers 9 to 16. Here are my suggestions and how you can produce the respective main vowels, keeping the tongue in position which is exactly the same, then change the position of the lips. Cardinal number 2 is E, so I generate the first EU, and there it is, cardinal number 10. This is cardinal number 11, and once again I first generate cardinal number 2, which is with did lips after rounding my lips to get cardinal number 11. So middle vowels are very difficult to produce because they involve articulation between front and back, and the lips are in a neutral position, main middle vowel. Here two high vowels mix between E and L, so something like which would be like here we have, for example, this, which interesting, that's called squaw. Squaw is a central abomination that exists in many languages of the world. So a vowel like in English, mother would be a good example. Then we have the low vowel R, and finally the low one will be the vowel R as in German mumble. So here we can relate this central dome to some vowels that exist in some languages of the world to complete the vowel chart. We have to draw a parallel one with the back and another with the front of the vowel chart, and extending from the bottom center of the midline to the top and of the cardinal vowel chart. And finally, we need an intermediate line, so it is this dashed horizontal line that completes the geometric pattern of the cardinal vowel charts. Okay, so this effect is called nasalization. Nasalized vowels are represented by their standard symbols, but then they receive additional symbols, diacritic symbols that look like this to show that they are nasalized. Here are two examples of French and Polish languages that have nasalized vowels. Okay, another possibility to classify guts is in terms of voicing, usually voiced vowel, which means that the vowel cords vibrate. However, there are languages where we can find voiceless or whispered vowels in Japanese. The vowels E and O are frequent voiceless or unvoiced times, especially when they appear in syllable final position or after voiceless fricatives. The diacritic used to indicate the voicing is a circle under the vowel as a subscript.